Hi, everyone. Welcome into the Rochester Press Box. Nice to have you. Bill Pucko here, along with my buddies, Tariq Spence. How you doing, Tariq?
It was very hard to watch the Braves win the World Series as a Mets fan, but that's where we stand.
And Pat Duffy, in a very good color on you.
Oh, thank you. Well, they're all good on me. No, I love this sweater. It's an Amerks early 2000s pregame warm-up sweater brought to you by Pepsi, apparently.
That is awesome. The color is really quite impressive, and it's got the stuff in there. And
got the tie now. I mean, this is everything I ever needed. And I'm not sweaty because I'm a big sweaty guy, but it's like super thin, so I'm super happy with the sweater.
Right. Hey, the baseball season is over. You alluded to. You're going to have to live with it.
Yeah, well, the Braves got it, and they got it done really by an interesting new format of, well, their hitters hit in Freeman and, of course, Solar, but their pitchers, it's interesting how the regular season with Morton with a number of pitchers didn't really rise to the occasion in the playoffs. They went with the best 5 arms they had, and they were able to get it done. Spread it across the bullpen, got the outs they needed, but it was really the hitting that mattered the most. So Atlanta hit, and the Astros didn't.
This is up your wheelhouse, kind of. The baseball playoffs are becoming more like the Stanley Cup playoffs to me. Is it get there and just roll them out? I think, I didn't check that. I think Atlanta had the worst record of all 10 teams that were in the postseason.
They did 88 wins. You're totally right. Find a way to get in, and once you get in, you're good to go. And look, you can make the same argument baseball to hockey that the roster that is most successful in the regular season never, ever ends up making it all the way to the end because you have to play playoffs differently than you play regular season, which brings me to the most potent point. This is proof with an 88-win team succeeding over the Dodgers, right, and everybody else. Regular season's too long. The regular season's too long. You went this whole regular season, you had 2 teams that were unbelievably good coming out of the National League, and the 88-win Braves won it all. It's too many games.
Is that a bad thing? You praise it when it happens in hockey, and I just think, it's just a cluster when it's hockey. And I think it's bad because there's no reward for regular season. So is this a good or a bad thing?
Okay, I love the chaos, so it's a good thing because the chaos is fantastic. But I would also make the argument 82 games is too many games for hockey, too. Settle it down, figure out who your best teams are, and let them go that way. If not, then 4 out of the 5-6 months that we're playing these sports, they don't matter.
I think we're too traditional, too. I think the fact that, this guy got us here the whole year round. This guy was our starting pitcher. This was our number 2. This was our number 3. For a number of years, it actually worked. You had a number 2, number 3, number 4, maybe, and then your bullpen, and you go back to 1, 2, and 3 if it's a 7-game series. Now it's 1, 2, bullpen game 3. Maybe you come back, let your bats get hot, and then you can come back with your first and second starter in a series, 5-game series, 7-game series. So I think baseball has to evolve. And to your point, even though the Yankees spent a lot of money, the Mets spent a lot of money, a number of teams have spent a lot of money, it seems to be the team with the right chemistry, egos aside. I don't care if I won 14 games in the regular season. When we're in the postseason, I don't have the hot arm.
And you're never out of it until you're out of it. I mean, the trade deadline, these guys decided, they were in the division. The Mets were leading, about 5 games at the break. Atlanta was under 500, and they decided, we're still going to try.
And nobody knows, other than Will Smith, their closer, any of their starters. So that's what makes this so interesting.
But to that point, this is also exciting for people that like great baseball matchups because the extra wild card keeps teams in it longer. You're going to see general managers after what the Braves were successful doing saying, you know what? We're not that far out of it. Who knows what happens in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? You're going to have even more teams middle of the pack pushing to make that playoff run instead of selling off at the deadline.
No more relegating to the bullpen. I think the bullpen's more important than your starting pitcher because they're going to the bullpen faster games 3 and 4.
Yeah, but they can't do this over the course of the regular season.
That's
it's still going to play a little differently.
That's the problem. You've got to get to the playoffs, like Duffy said. Once you're there,
just like hockey,
give me your best bats and your best arms.
Why can't you do it the entire regular season? Why? I mean, you could do it to see what happens. Maybe you crash and burn, but then you get a movie made about you like the A's did. They didn't win nothing. They got Moneyball.
That's a good point.
The Rays do it every year, and everybody's kind of like, how do the Rays do it? And
I think I say that mostly because I feel like I don't want it to happen.
The truth is out. Now we know the truth.
We have the Rochester Press Box, and we're talking Buffalo Bills next.
Original Bay Goodman Pizza, located on the corner of North Winton at Browncroft. There are 3 ways to get the original Bay & Goodman delivery. Go to baygoodman.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back here to the Rochester Press Box. Our Buffalo Bills segment is brought to you by Ralph Honda for 3 generations and celebrating 50 years as New York's oldest and finest Honda dealer. Visit Ralph Honda today and find out how we do Honda right. That's ralphhonda.com. Pat, the Buffalo Bills, what were you feeling like at halftime of a 3-3 game with Miami?
Look, I want to say they should be in there blowing them. Look, it was frustrating. I'll tell you what it felt like. It was like watching a Bills game from 2008, right? The thing that popped in my head was that Bills-Browns game where Roscoe Parrish at home fumbles a punt with 2 minutes left in a 3-3 game, and the Browns win 6-3. But it makes sense, right? Like, you had 2 injuries that affected everything that you were able to do. Your interior offensive line and your tight end, who is your quick release valve, right? Those 2 things combined made it really hard for that offense to run. It's not all that alarming to me. I'm glad that everything wrapped in. You got a nice backdoor cover, which was really cool with the Josh Allen. But yeah, I mean, it was the least enjoyable game I've watched in maybe 3 years.
You brought that up. What is it with that 2-point conversion that, like, essentially wound up as a push because Buffalo went into the game at game time a 15-point favorite, and they go for 2 and push the bet.
I think the Bills went for 2 because Miami went for 2 for no reason earlier in the game. They tried to figure out the math. It didn't make any sense to me. I honestly think that the way the game was going, it was here's my thumb, there's your eye. Because he's waving goodbye to guys after the 2-point conversion tries over.
I think they just wanted to prove me wrong. I predicted 15-point win, and exactly what they got is what they did, and they went to prove Tariq wrong. Well, listen, your defense is amazing. And that's what's so great about this. The defense stayed the way it was. The offense, listen, you got to get it rolling, got to get it going. My biggest thing now is just like, don't play down to the level. This is what you were worried about last week. Mm-hmm. Playing down to the level of the competition of what you're facing. Miami, don't do it to Jacksonville. You can't go lower than Jacksonville. Jacksonville is at the lowest.
But then you got the Jets. You might have actually...
Which might have a little bit of a concern here. The Mike White week continues.
But the thing is, I think that's a real concern because it got 3 games in a row now. It's next to impossible to be at your best 3 games in a row against teams you think you just can handle.
Yeah, but here's the thing, too. McDermott isn't so much about coaching for a season. He's about coaching game to game, right? You look at the way that the offense was running in the first half against Miami. They were running the ball because they knew they were going to have trouble protecting Josh Allen. They were keeping the game close, knowing that at the end of the game, they were going to be able to go and win that game. It's the same way that they beat the Patriots first game of the season last year. It's the same way they tried to beat the Chiefs the first game of the season last year when they played them, and they almost were. I'm not alarmed by anything I saw in that game. Get Dawson Knox back. I love him. Brings curly hair back in. And let's go in Jacksonville and go get a win.
It's going to be fun to see Trevor Lawrence this week.
It will be fun to see Trevor Lawrence. I think the Bills offensively get out to a very early lead. The same thing I said last week. If you can get Allen out of the game, get Trubisky in, thank goodness you didn't trade him.
Don't say that again, by the way. Because you said that last week and all of a sudden, you can be in there. Get him out of the game.
You're not going to switch out. If Allen is healthy, he's going to play. But you want him healthy for a lot more games coming up. The Jets are coming up. They look like they want to get a little bit of resurgence. So I would just look at it this way. Go out there, run your offense, get your players in there, but don't get hurt in Jacksonville. Please, for crying out loud.
What are you doing? Why would you do that? Why did he do that?
I don't know. I have no control over what he says.
It's sports. There's no jinx, right? Right?
Well, they're 14.5. Are going to cover?
Of course they will. He has nothing to worry about. Does that make it worse or better?
I mean, 13.5, and it took a backdoor cover to beat Miami. You're on the road. Are they 17.5? By the way, that 14.5, as we're talking now, is still going up.
It is going up.
Right?
It started at 10.5.
Jacksonville won their first game out of the country, for crying out loud.
They did.
You don't think that this team, one of the best in the AFC, can beat them badly?
No, I don't think they could not beat them badly. I worry about a backdoor cover, and I also worry about the fact that then what? We're going to get to a point where Vegas thinks that the Bills are 20 points better on a neutral field by the time kickoff happens. They win, no cover for the Bills.
What?
You heard me.
And you're a Bills fan?
Die hard. And that's why I know what I'm talking about, Tariq.
I agree. 14 seems like the right number.
Right?
If you get 14.5 and you go to the bank.
We'll see you in 6 days.
Our Buffalo Bills segment brought to you by Ralph Honda. Like it or not is next. Here's the Press Box trivia question brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
All of these things show Josh Allen has a strive for greatness inside of him.
Falcon Around with Carl Falk. New episodes every Tuesday on Rock Sports Now.
Here's the Press Box Trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Are you facing criminal charges from a DWI and feel that you never imagined it could happen to you? Contact attorneys with years of experience as prosecutors and defenders. Contact Ganguly Brothers Law today for a free consultation. You can put your trust in us.
Welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on the Rochester Press Box. Our Like It or Not segment brought to you by Ganguly Brothers Law, attorneys with years of experience defending the accused. Don't go unprepared. Contact Ganguly Law today. Tariq, like it or not, we've had the first college football rankings that really matter in terms of the playoffs. What do you think of them?
I like them. I like them because they matter. And I don't like the preseason. I don't like anything that the college or anybody else ranks them beforehand. I like ESPN's rankings. I like this just before the end of the regular season. You get to find out where everybody stinks. Mm-hmm. Now, you put Georgia and Alabama where they are. They're just that good. But the other teams that interest me, Oklahoma. That's a fun team to watch. I mean, to go from a quarterback that was really good in Radler and then go to Williams right after that and then get some Madden scores when it comes to offense, that kid is throwing, like, at this particular moment, 14 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he's only played a handful of games. So I've never seen anything like this. Usually a quarterback loses for, issues that may be an injury or not performing well. One quarterback does not perform well and a half, another quarterback in and blows him away. So I think Oklahoma's the one to watch all the way. I'm not completely sold on Cincinnati. Everybody loves a Cinderella team, but it'll play out to be probably 2 SEC teams, 1 Big Ten team, and somebody else.
Some of it will play itself out because they set it up so that they know Georgia and Alabama are going to play it out. Michigan State and Ohio State are going to play it out. But Cincinnati is the team everyone's talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about them now. But how many every year? There's a team or two, right? Like around this time, watch out, watch out. And even if they get to a point where they could be within striking distance, well, there's a reason to leave them out. I'm not getting too excited about it.
Well, it's not. It's more a matter of like, geez, did they get worked over or didn't they? They're sixth, so the idea is to finish in the top 4. Yeah, they don't have a really clear path.
Well, but they never did, and that's the whole problem with the way that this system works, right? Like, I love the playoff system, don't get me wrong, right? But there is no clear path for your Coastal Carolinas or your Cincinnatis or, even your Boise States at this point, right? Like, there was a time where that team had a legitimate chance to play for a national championship. The way that it's set up now, they don't. Teams like that. Hell, if you play in the Pac-12, you may not have a legitimate route to a national championship based on the way that things are favored.
But there's a clear path there. Oregon just has to win up.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that.
Yeah, everything
Plus, TV plays a big role in this. They want the big boys. They want the big-time teams, the big-time programs in these playoffs. If you expanded to 8, maybe, but that's a lot of football.
Pat, like it or not, what on the surface seemed to me to be a relatively inactive NFL trade deadline.
I mean, look, I follow these trade deadlines for every sport with attention. It doesn't make any sense. Odell, it's the deals that didn't happen that always interest me the most, right? Odell Beckham Jr., the drama his old man throws out on Instagram that day, yet he stays on that team. There's a rumor that Mitchell Trubisky, Bill's backup quarterback, a deal was done to send him to the Washington football team. That falls apart, right? And the question becomes, well, why are these deals done and don't get done? The drama with Deshaun Watson. He doesn't end up in Miami. He doesn't end up in Carolina. But out of nowhere, Von Miller ends up in Los Angeles for a second or third round pick, right? Von Miller in his early 30s for a year and a half for a second and a third round pick. That seems like a little too much for Von Miller, doesn't it?
I think they're putting all the chips in the middle of the table to go get that championship and another star on defense for Los Angeles. So that makes them a good team to watch down the line if he can make an impact.
Yeah.
You don't like to see those teams bulk up. I mean, you're looking way down the road as far as Buffalo goes, but every time a good team gets better, it's another impediment to a Buffalo outcome.
We'll see. I don't know. I mean, Von Miller's a dominant force in Denver. Is he a dominant force amongst other dominant forces in Los Angeles? We've seen this story a couple of times.
Plus, a lot of trades happened before that deadline, too. Ertz going to Arizona was big. That was a really big day. Stephon Gilmore, I think, Carolina. So a couple different things happened. I think Ingram went back to the Saints. Mark Ingram went back
Surprised
to
the Bills did nothing?
No. I don't know if you're surprised or not. I'm surprised. I'm pretty sure they weren't going to do anything.
It's crazy to think that the Bills are now the team that everyone else in the AFC is chasing. right? The Chiefs had to go out and make a
And
move.
they clearly are.
I mean, but it's insane to think they didn't do anything and they didn't need to, and it was a good thing for the Bills to do.
Like it or not, brought to you by Ganguly Brothers Law. Unfinished Business is next.
The Press Box Stat of the Week is being brought to you by McArdle's Restaurant in Fairport. McArdle's is open 7 days a week with dining available indoors and out, takeout and delivery. Come home to McArdle's.
Came now to Eichel. He floated one. Score!
Thanks for joining us, and welcome back to the Rochester Press Box. Time to wrap things up with some unfinished business. We'll let Pat start.
I want to hate Derrick Henry. I do, right? The Bills have played the Titans over and over and over again the last couple of years, and Derrick Henry seems to be the X factor when the Bills don't close that game out. You saw the story this week that Derrick Henry has what could be a season-ending injury to his foot that changes everything about the Tennessee Titans season. That part I'm enjoying a little bit, not the fact that he was hurt. Because like I said, I want to hate Derrick Henry. But I can't hate Derrick Henry because Derrick Henry, every time he talks, seems like a really good guy. And not only that, I like the way Derrick Henry plays football. It's a throwback to your Bo Jackson and your Earl Campbell and your Christian Okoye, right? Like these physical runners that will do everything they can either around you or through you. And it's fun to watch. But there's a reason why we don't have those backs anymore. Exactly what happened to Derrick Henry this week. We talked earlier this year here on the show about how Derrick Henry was on pace to set the record for the most carries in an NFL season in 2021 and how physical he ran and how they relied on him. Well, it was just a matter of time before this was going to happen, and I hate to see it, I do. But when you see a running back with a knee, foot, or ankle injury, especially one of this magnitude, it's probably over. So, I guess, don't be sad that Derrick Henry's gone, or could be. Be happy that it happened.
For this past week, for the last couple of days, it's been Mike White's show in New York. He has taken over that city as the number one quarterback, even though Zach Wilson is the number one quarterback for the Jets week one, all the way up to his knee injury. For Mike White, there comes a lot of pressure. There comes this sort of feeling of, could this be the man for the New York Jets? And I feel bad for him in a sense that every week from now on, Mike White is going to be put on a pedestal like a Jeremy Lin or anybody else that might, I don't know, Tom Brady, come into a situation where the starting quarterback gets hurt and he turns out to be the savior of the franchise. Mike White needs to be Mike White and play his football. He may not be the next Tony Romo. He's just a guy that had a fantastic week 8 in the NFL and was the offensive player of the week. Let's not put any pressure on Mike White, but let's look and see if he is the quarterback of the future for the Jets, because if he is, we'll all be rooting for the guy who didn't get drafted by the team, saving the team.
Modern day analytics might deny Jerry Remy's career. He hit only 7 home runs in 10 years and none over his final 6 seasons. But in the 70s, there was room for a 5'9", 165-pound second baseman who could field and run and who got every ounce of his ability out of what God gave him. He grew up in Boston and dreamed about playing in Fenway Park for the Red Sox, and that dream came true. Knee injuries took their toll, and he was once memorably carried off the field by Big Jim Rice, as you might cradle an 11-year-old. When that career ended, a new one began, in the broadcast booth where Remy lived for the next 30 years. He was wonderful. Jerry didn't have canned nicknames or script home run calls. He wasn't an extreme homer. He had a gravelly voice and a thick Boston accent. He laughed at himself a lot. He was nicknamed the Remdog, and it fit. And in Red Sox Nation, he became beloved. Then 13 years ago, Remy developed lung cancer. Took a leave of absence, fought it, beat it, and returned to work. He came back. Took a leave of absence, fought it, beat it, and returned to work. 4 times. Rinse and repeat. Then in August, the cancer returned again. Remy took a leave of absence and fought it. One last time. He returned to throw out the first pitch in Boston's one-game playoff over the Yankees. Less than a month later, he was gone. For 30-plus years, Jerry Remy was just a guy who would drop by your house for a Red Sox game, talk a little baseball, tell a few stories, be the kind of companion you wish you had in real life. Promised to return the next night to do it all over again and never ask for anything in return. There's real comfort in that. It's a kind of a comfort that you can't simply replace. And that's unfinished business. And guys, let me say this to the guy that Remy did what he did, and I loved him for it. You guys are doing the same thing. And with your mornings, and there are people out there who think the same way of you, and I think it's wonderful to be associated with this whole thing.
Oh my God, thank you.
Yeah, but I think it's true.
I appreciate
you do a real public service.
I'll speak for Duffy. I appreciate our listeners. That's all I can say.
Alrighty. Thank you for joining us here in the Rochester Press Box. We'll see you again next week.